Alright, so I filled this up as much as I could with the wood that didn't cook from the last batch, and you can see how much there is. I stacked it a little bit farther apart so there's more air gaps in it, so hopefully that'll make a difference. And I'm gonna stack some fresh wood on top because usually it's the hottest on top, and maybe they'll kind of end up cooking evenly. So I filled this up with a little bit more wood. This is red oak mostly. I think there's some sweet gum in there. It really doesn't matter as long as it's wood. Okay, so the charcoal kiln ran for 4 hours before it started to burn, and that was partially, well, actually, no, that was because I put a little too much wood in there. I tried to kind of push my luck. So I found that once it gets up to temperature, you can do 1 to 2 logs max. That's as much as you can do, because beyond that, it just gets too hot, and I don't know exactly what happens, but before I was just keeping it from 1 to 2 logs, and the steam coming out of it was completely fine. And then I put some half-burnt charcoal bark in there, and that seemed to be what kind of put it over that threshold and made the wood on the other side burn. So one kind of rule that I, came up with is that if you can't see the logs, it's too much. So that means that if you can't see the logs through the hole that the air flows into, if you can't see, if the logs are stacked in such a way that it's above that, then that's just way too much wood when it's at temperature. When it's lower than that, you really don't have to worry because the whole compartment isn't that hot already. So the thing about this kiln is that it looks like it's doing really good when it first starts burning, which really sucks because you see all these white plumes of smoke that, oh wow, look at all the steam that's coming off, and then soon you realize, after 5 more minutes, that the smoke gets a slight brown tinge to it, and yeah, then you have to close that up, or else you're going to lose a lot of charcoal. So you can see here, this is kind of a diagram of how the whole thing works. So you have this firebox here, which is only separated by this wall that only goes up so high, and then there's this little passageway to let the hot air through. Now the whole purpose of this design is to let the air in such a way that the fire eats up all the oxygen before it gets to the carbonization chamber. So what I did wrong with the last batch is that I filled this up to the brim, which kind of creates a block in the very top, all across the top, so air can't travel through. The reason why I put a grate in here is because you need some convection. You need the hot air to actually be able to recycle under this. So the way it works is that the air comes in here, gets heated up by the fire, and kind of loses its oxygen content, and then it goes up through here, through this, it's a small hole in the very top. It's not that small, it's about that big, really. And then the hot air starts to travel through here, but as it goes along the barrels, it starts to cool down. So this air starts kind of traveling down and down and down, and until it gets to the chimney. But some of this air is still hot enough, and then the draw is fast enough so that it recycles some of that air back down and back up. It kind of cycles it again and again, so it keeps that heat in there. So what I did wrong is that I blocked it off so that that air that comes up here didn't have a passageway to go back through, so it kind of stopped the convection. So now what I've done is that I'm leaving a good gap on the very top, and I'm going to try to reestablish that, kind of get the air flowing through it so it carbonizes more evenly, because before the very top was just charred and then the bottom was uncooked. So that kind of told me that the air just seemed to be, traveling through, it didn't care, and then going through the chimney and going back up, because it just kind of filtered through the very top of it. It didn't really want to go back around. So hopefully this will fix it, and also not making the fire so big that it, the flame actually, this can happen. The flame goes up through this, and sometimes if you make the fire too big, the flame can actually touch the wood, and that's when you have too much oxygen coming in through this opening. So hopefully this will work.